Hi, it's your friend Leo. If your mind needs somewhere softer to land tonight, this story is for you. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story that gives your thoughts somewhere gentle to go, so your body can let go and sleep can come naturally. So pull the blanket closer, take one slow breath with me, and let it out. Get comfortable, let your eyes grow heavy, and allow yourself to drift a little farther away from the day. And when you're ready, let us begin. The dreamer had spent so many years asking people what the stars looked like that most of the villagers smiled the moment they saw her approaching, because they already knew exactly what question was coming. She never seemed to grow tired of asking it, and perhaps that was because she never received the same answer twice. Whenever travelers arrived in the village, she would find herself sitting beside them sooner or later, listening to stories about distant places and unfamiliar roads, and somewhere during the conversation she would eventually lean forward and ask what the stars looked like. The answers always left her feeling as though she had somehow missed the most important part. One traveler told her that the stars looked like home after spending many months away, while another insisted that they looked like hope, and although those answers sounded beautiful, they never felt complete enough to satisfy her curiosity. As the years passed, the mystery only grew larger. The dreamer often stood beside her bedroom window late in the evening and looked toward the sky above the village, wondering whether everyone was talking about the same thing at all. She could see a handful of faint lights on particularly clear nights, yet people always spoke about the stars as though they were something far greater than distant points of light. They spoke about them the way people spoke about first love, childhood memories, or places they missed long after leaving them behind. The dreamer wanted to understand why. She wanted somebody to finally give her a clear answer. She wanted somebody to explain the stars in a way that made sense. That desire followed her all the way into adulthood, and it remained with her on the evening when everything finally began. The day had been warm, and by the time the sun slipped below the horizon, the village had settled into the comfortable rhythm it always seemed to find at the end of a long day. Shopkeepers closed their doors. Families returned home. The scent of dinner drifted from open windows. The harbor grew quieter with every passing minute. The dreamer had stopped by the bakery shortly before closing time, and she was carrying a fresh loaf of bread beneath her arm when she noticed a young couple sitting together near the water. Their conversation immediately caught her attention because she heard three words she had not expected to hear that evening. The forgotten star. She slowed her pace without meaning to. The woman was speaking softly, yet excitement kept finding its way into her voice. She explained that a small group of travelers would be walking to the lighthouse that night because the conditions were perfect, and several people believed the forgotten star might finally appear. The dreamer had heard stories about the forgotten star since childhood. According to the legends, it appeared only on rare occasions, and many people spent years hoping to see it. Nobody seemed to agree on when it would appear or why it appeared, which only made the mystery more fascinating. Without thinking too much about it, the dreamer approached the couple and asked whether strangers were allowed to join the walk. The woman smiled immediately. The man shifted slightly on the bench and made room for her. Within minutes, they were talking as though they had known each other for years. An hour later, they were walking together beneath the night sky. The village slowly disappeared behind them as the group followed a winding path that stretched along the coastline. The sea rolled quietly beside the cliffs, and each wave seemed to arrive with the same patient rhythm before slipping back into the darkness once again. The sound was strangely comforting. The dreamer found herself listening to it the way she might listen to a familiar song. The farther they traveled, the more distant the village became. Soon the lanterns were little more than tiny golden specks far behind them. The path ahead seemed softer somehow. The darkness felt deeper. The air felt cooler. Everything seemed to move more slowly. Nobody seemed interested in reaching the lighthouse quickly. Instead, people walked at a relaxed pace, stopping occasionally to admire the view or share stories. The dreamer noticed that everyone seemed unusually calm. Nobody appeared concerned about tomorrow. It felt as though the entire group had quietly agreed to leave the rest of the world behind for a few hours. After some time, they arrived at a small clearing where an elderly woman sat on a weathered bench beneath an old tree. A basket rested on her lap, and the warm scent drifting through the air revealed its contents before anyone needed to ask. Cookies, freshly baked, still warm. The old woman greeted every traveler with the kind of smile that immediately made people feel welcome. When the dreamer accepted her cookie, she noticed that the warmth lingered in her hands even after she stopped walking. The old woman asked everyone to sit for a few minutes before continuing their journey. Nobody objected. The grass felt soft beneath them. The sea continued its steady rhythm below the cliffs. The lantern beside the old woman cast a warm circle of light around the group. For a while, they simply sat together and enjoyed the peacefulness of the evening. Then the old woman looked toward the dreamer. She asked what she hoped to find at the lighthouse. The dreamer answered honestly. She explained that she wanted to understand the stars. The old woman nodded slowly. Then she asked why. The question surprised her. The dreamer had never really considered it before. After a moment, she admitted that she was tired of receiving answers that made no sense. She explained that everyone seemed to describe the stars differently, and she wanted somebody to finally tell her the truth. The old woman listened carefully. When the dreamer finished speaking, she smiled and broke off a small piece of her cookie. The old woman looked toward the sea before speaking. Then she explained that some experiences become smaller the moment they are reduced to explanations. She explained that there was a difference between understanding something and experiencing it. The dreamer listened politely, yet the answer felt just as mysterious as all the others she had received over the years. Eventually, the group stood and continued walking. As they traveled farther along the coast, The dreamer continued asking people what the stars looked like. A fisherman told her that they reminded him of returning home after spending months at sea. A teacher said they reminded her of possibilities that had not happened yet. A musician explained that they felt similar to hearing a favorite melody drifting through an open window on a summer evening. All the answers seemed sincere and genuine. Each answer sounded sincere and beautiful, yet somehow it only made her feel more confused. The farther they walked, the more frustrated she became. She wanted someone to stop speaking in riddles. At one point she laughed and admitted this to the group. She explained that everybody seemed determined to describe everything except the stars themselves. The travelers laughed gently. Nobody appeared offended. The old woman smiled once again. Then she explained something that remained with the dreamer for the rest of the evening. She told her that if someone handed her the answer too early, she might spend the entire journey looking for the wrong thing. The dreamer spent the next hour thinking about those words. By the time the lighthouse finally appeared ahead of them, she still had no idea what they meant. The tower stood above the cliffs, overlooking the dark sea below. A blanket of clouds covered most of the sky. The sight immediately disappointed her. After traveling all this way, she had hoped for a perfectly clear night. Instead, the stars remained hidden. The group settled onto blankets spread across the grass. The lighthouse keeper welcomed everyone warmly and placed a kettle over a small fire. Soon, cups of tea were being passed from person to person. The dreamer accepted one and sat facing the ocean. The warmth of the cup felt comforting in her hands. The sea moved endlessly below. The lighthouse beam rotated across the water. The clouds drifted overhead. Time seemed to lose its usual importance. Nobody checked the hour. Instead, people shared stories. The lighthouse keeper spoke about nights when dolphins followed fishing boats through the moonlight. The fisherman described calm mornings when the ocean looked like glass. The old woman told a story about a traveler who spent 40 years searching for treasure only to discover that his happiest memories had come from the people he met along the way. The dreamer listened quietly. The stories blended with the sound of the waves. The waves blended with the wind. The wind moved gently through the grass. Everything seemed to settle. The tension she had carried for years slowly loosened its grip. For the first time since arriving, she stopped thinking about answers. She stopped trying to solve anything. She stopped wondering whether somebody was hiding the truth from her. She simply listened. The tea kept its warmth. The conversations became softer. Several travelers wrapped themselves more tightly in their blankets. The atmosphere felt peaceful in a way that was difficult to describe. It felt as though the entire world had lowered its voice. Then, While listening to the distant rhythm of the sea, the dreamer noticed something changing overhead. The clouds were moving apart. They were simply drifting in different directions, creating wider openings as they traveled. The darkness above the lighthouse gradually deepened. More of the sky became visible. The dreamer looked upward. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The opening continued growing. The heavens seemed to stretch farther than she had ever imagined possible. She felt her breath slow and her shoulders relax. She felt the constant noise inside her mind become quieter. Then she understood something she had never understood before. All those people had tried to answer her question honestly. The sailor had not been describing the stars themselves. He had been describing what they awakened inside him. The baker had been describing a feeling. The musician had been describing a feeling. The teacher had been describing a feeling. Every answer had been true. Every answer had simply belonged to a different heart. The dreamer continued looking upward. She no longer felt interested in finding the perfect explanation. She no longer felt interested in reducing the experience into words. Instead, she allowed herself to sit quietly beneath the vastness above her and experience it exactly as it was. When the forgotten star finally appeared above the horizon, nobody pointed toward it. Nobody needed to. Its presence seemed to settle gently across the gathering. The dreamer smiled. The waves continued rolling toward the shore. The lighthouse continued turning above them. The breeze continued moving through the grass. The forgotten star remained where it was. For a long time, she simply sat there, wrapped in a blanket and surrounded by the peaceful company of people who no longer felt like strangers. Eventually, her eyelids became heavier. The warmth of the blanket felt wonderful. The sound of the sea felt distant and comforting. The voices around her faded into soft murmurs. The stars remained overhead. The forgotten star continued shining quietly in the distance. And as sleep gradually arrived and wrapped itself around her as gently as the blanket resting across her shoulders, the dreamer finally stopped searching for answers and allowed herself to drift peacefully into the kind of rest people carry with them long after morning arrives.